جلساتنا الممتعة متلاحقة، لذلك لا وقت للاستراحة. الاستراحة ستكون في الغداء. جلستنا الرابعة تتناول مستقبل صناعة المحتوى، والتي تركز على تأثير الثورة الصناعية الرابعة في عمل الإعلام والمحتوى.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next session will discuss the future of creating content and will touch on topics such as the future of media and content and the impact of the fourth industrial revolution on the media and content business.
نرحب بمدير الجلسة يورغن بوس، مدير معرض فرانكفورت للكتاب، وضيوفه.
This session will be moderated by Jürgen Boos, director of the Frankfurt Book Fair. Please welcome on stage.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to our session. I have to shock you a little bit. We have to go back 500-600 years in time. It's not about the future now. It's not about new technologies. It's not about revolution. But we're going back till the 15th century to 1470, when Gutenberg actually invented printing. This was about the same time when our book fair was founded in a small town next to Frankfurt in Germany. And over the course of 500 years, this book fair, where I'm the president and CEO of, became the most prominent marketplace for intellectual property, copyright transactions, having people from 150 countries, 200,000 trade visitors coming every year. And actually, every year, we have a new revolution in our industry. But right now, what I would like to introduce to you, it's my dear friends. There's Stephanie from Bloomsbury, a traditional publishing house, actually the publisher of Harry Potter in the UK. And we also have Marta, who comes from a different world, the world of blockchains. But I would ask you to introduce yourself. Stephanie, maybe you first.
Right, hello. Well, thank you very much for having me here. I'm Stephanie Duncan. I'm the Digital Media Director at Bloomsbury Publishing, PLC. Most people know us because we're the publisher of Harry Potter. What an honor that is. And I have been leading Bloomsbury's sort of foray into the digital world for 20 years.
Thank you. My name is Marta Piekarska. I'm Director of Ecosystem for Hyperledger. I'm with Linux Foundation. We are an open source collaboration that provides an open ecosystem for enterprises and open source developers to build enterprise blockchains for frameworks and enterprises.
Yeah. This year at the Frankfurt Book Fair, we had a new venue which is called Arts Plus, and it all deals actually what this summit is also about, how to distribute knowledge and how to develop knowledge. And we had a robot actually in Frankfurt, and this robot was writing manifestos. And one of the manifestos was, manuscripts are made of dialogues and voids. Right now, this might be a little bit difficult to understand, but actually, you two are going to speak about manuscripts and voids. So I would ask Stephanie now to come up with her keynote.
I'm going to come over here. There we go. So firstly, when I first heard the theme of this incredible conference being the fourth industrial revolution, the first thing that sprung to my mind anyway was a Bob Dylan song, Positively 4th Street. He's another innovator and in fact Nobel Prize winner, of course, now for literature. I just wanted to start, as Jürgen said, of course, books have been around forever. They started being written by one person, available for one person. It was a very limited distribution. And then, of course, you know, as Jürgen said, there was the printing press that started that made books and knowledge be able to be widely and easily disseminated worldwide. That's a picture of a library that's just opened in China, in fact, with not just one book, but 1.3 million books that are available freely to everyone. And I think what's so lovely about that library, it is really a beautiful building, and I think it shows that when you build something beautiful and accessible, people will come and people want to read and learn however they do that. Of course, now they're doing it mostly digitally, and so as publishers, we have always been in the business of making knowledge available through books, but now increasingly it's in a digital format. And if my colleague over there can run the video on this slide, this will show how we have used digital to make one of our collections of fashion content available for online access by many worldwide. Okay, not to worry, it doesn't matter. Sometimes digital can be a positive and sometimes it can be a negative. But what the Fashion Library does is it pulls together images, content. It enables people to not only view and read this content, but to annotate it, to share it, to do many things that previously weren't possible in the printed edition of the book. Equally, I thought I'd draw your attention to the Arcadian Library. So the Arcadian Library was something started 40 years ago. Its whole ambition was to bring learning of the Islamic books into the West, so to exchange and foster that sharing of information. It's mainly very old manuscripts and, of course, written in Arabic, and we've been able to digitize those and make them available worldwide to anyone who is interested in that information. Equally, we take books that are interesting to the general public. So in this case, I've just picked cookery books. Now, cookery books are, everyone needs to know how to cook, and they don't necessarily know who publishes that cookery book. So books on this digital platform are available not just from Bloomsbury, but from many publishers. And it's divided by whatever you're interested in looking for, what to cook for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or with a particular vegetable. So it's all about how we use digital to make the information accessible. What are the opportunities? Well, they're just huge. Of course, one of the main things that digital transformation has brought is it has made everybody able to do what very few people could do before. So take self-publishing, for example. Before, only publishers could publish. Now anyone can do it. This is a project that was, it's called MakeMyBook.com. Look it up. It's all about enabling children at school to learn how to make books. And it's just, I think, such an inspirational thing because it's giving children the power to make their own books, to share them with their family, with their friends, to make projects, and really be inspired about creating and sharing knowledge. Technology has also enabled us to access the information differently. So this, you'll probably recognize that picture, Rhett Butler and Scarlett from Gone with the Wind. Well, that's about a product that was recently launched about a week ago, I think, by Audible, which is an audiobook company. And they've enabled, based on tagging all the words in the book, for the listener to get straight to the bit they want to get to. In this case, the romantic part of the book that they particularly want to listen to. It's called Get to the Good Bit. Multilingual. I mean, I think this is one of the most fascinating and possibly helpful things we'll see coming out of new technologies. Google launched their Pixel phone, I think it was 2 weeks ago, which enabled simultaneous translation if you're using a Pixel phone. So, for example, if you were listening to this talk now using a Pixel phone, you would be able to translate simultaneously what I'm saying into 40 languages, which is an incredibly powerful tool, I think. Cooperation. I mean, this is where technology enables so many things. This example is the BBC and Amazon are working together on enabling the person who is listening to the story that's being spoken out loud by the Alexa tool. It enables the listener to engage in that story, to change the plot, to really get involved. And I think, again, this is just one of the examples of how technology is is changing and enabling the share of information. Of course, open access in universities has changed the way that students access all their information online. The challenge there being, of course, how publishers and authors are paid for it. This product is something called UNO, and I saw it maybe a couple months ago and was blown away by it. It was a student at Stanford University who just really figured out that, you know, when you're a student, most of what you do is you have to read books to learn, you're researching projects. You can't possibly read the amount of books it would take for you to know all the knowledge in the world. And yet computers can do all that for you. And so in a way, what this UNO product has done is it has scanned all the information in the world and then enables researchers, students, whoever is interested in doing so, in finding the connections between concepts and ideas. It's using AI really to help educate, and it's a phenomenally exciting thing. I think keep an eye out for that. What are the obstacles? Well, you know, it gets complicated. The more we break things up into small bits, how are people going to be paid? Who knows what is, you know, the correct bit of information? Who's being paid for it? I know Marta's going to speak a bit about that, so I'll leave that for Marta to talk about. Rights complexity. Who has the right to do what and where and when and with what? You know, there's so many complex issues in rights that are all there to be worked out. From a print perspective, the complexity is pretty straightforward. Getting a book from A to B can be complicated, shipping and so on. And from a digital perspective, even more so. What is the ebook that we created back in 2006? Can that even still be read today? By the way, probably not. You know, making sure that these digital products we produce are still accessible in the future. Author payments, making sure that authors throughout this process are paid, and piracy. We all know that the minute that the internet really started and the first time somebody got a CD and figured out they could rip it and share that music with their friends, that created an issue for content creators that we're dealing with always. Now, don'ts for publishers. This is just a great little idea. I think you can see those books, Don'ts for Wives and Don'ts for Husbands, were first published in 1913. So that was something that someone in our office went into our archive and found these old books and thought, these are great books, they're still relevant today. And in fact, having republished them a couple of years ago, we've sold millions of them. So, you know, don't ignore old copyrights. There's always value to be found. Equally, you know, don't create digital ghettos. Digital, it's a word, but it's actually we should just publish. It's just use digital to achieve what you want to achieve. Do's for publisher: learn, keep on learning, keep trying things. Oops, I've gone too far. Sorry. Keep trying things, and most importantly, have fun while you're doing it. And I wanted to just go back to end with Bob Dylan. I think, you know, these are all these very important platforms that we all use every day, and they have helped us to achieve a lot of our digital goals. But to take a line from Bob Dylan's song, Positively 4th Street, we do have to be aware that they're all out there to make money, as are we. We have to figure out how we can do it together and yet still share the knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Publishing always had to function actually to distribute knowledge, to distribute information, but it also has a curating function, a quality function, a marketing function. So there are many traditional things which have been there for hundreds of years, and now I'm very interested, Marta, whether blockchain technology is going to change the way we do it, or maybe there are new functions which are very important for our industry.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for sitting here and waiting for us to finish that while you're waiting for your lunch. I appreciate that. I'm thrilled to be in Dubai, really. Could we get the slides up, please? Oh, yeah, great. Thank you. So I come from Linux Foundation, as mentioned. I'll give you a brief overview what Linux Foundation does and how it combines with Hyperledger, because that's always a confusion. And I'll give you also an overview of what blockchain is and blockchain technologies, because I know that this is a new topic to the world of publishing and world of knowledge. It's a very exciting thing. And then we'll talk a bit more about the opportunities. So let's start. What Linux Foundation is more than just Linux. I'm sure that you heard about a Linux operating system. I hope you did, or I hope you have. We have been set up 16 years ago to provide the backbone for the legal marketing and PR infrastructure for enterprises to promote open source platforms and open source code in every major industry. So there are some probably projects that you may have heard of, like the Node.js. Maybe you have heard about automotive-grade Linux. By show of hands, have you ever driven a BMW? Anyone? Okay, yeah, cool. So almost every BMW has automotive-grade Linux in their cars. Kubernetes is our cloud platform, so most servers have Kubernetes these days. Let's Encrypt is our big certificate authority, so this is a big thing. And then about 2 years ago, something like that, our executive director, Jim Zemlin, has been approached by all of our major members of Linux Foundation and been asked, you know, Jim, have you heard about this big thing called Bitcoin? And obviously, you know, 2 years ago, have you heard about Bitcoin? Okay, cool. So 2 years ago, people heard about Bitcoin. But Jim said, you know, we promote open source and we want to help enterprises develop public, or we want enterprises to develop open source. Bitcoin is not what fits our model. So, but the underlying technology is something that is very interesting. And this is very important knowledge. Bitcoin and blockchain are not the two same things. Cryptocurrency does not equal blockchain. And thus, Hyperledger was funded. Hyperledger is a collaborative and global open source software community that is hosted by Linux Foundation and aims to advance blockchain technologies for business. We focus on the enterprise-grade blockchains. And what our goals are is to build create the enterprise-grade open source distributed ledgers and frameworks, and provide the neutral and open collaborative driven infrastructures. We build the technical communities, we educate the public, but mostly we promote our community of communities. So we are all about the open source developers. We are all about our members. Our members today, after 18 months since we've been founded. We started with 30 members. Today we are at 180. And we range all the way from IBM, Accenture, Deloitte, Intel, also big banks like JP Morgan, like Wells Fargo, all the way to companies like Monax, like Soramitsu, so small startups. So there is a huge range. 40% of our members sit in China and Asia Pacific countries. We have Monetary Authority of Singapore that just joined, Bank of England, so a huge range. I'm very happy to talk more about it. But the question really is, what is blockchain and how does this really advance the knowledge? So let's focus on that. What blockchain is really about how do we agree on assets balance? And this is a question that we've been asking ourselves since we really started collaborating, since we started interacting with each other as people. It was about, I have one loaf of bread, you have 2 fish, we want to exchange that values. And the question that we've started doing was we started putting it on ledgers, right? And these ledgers, these books, pieces of, first we started probably putting it in sand, but sand is pretty easy to destroy. So then we
started carving in stone. That's not really easy to remove. On the other hand, then we had paper. Paper is easy to destroy. And then we came to the digital world. But in digital world, there are many copies that may contain different versions of truth, right? So in my version of truth, I may say one fish is worth one piece of loaf of bread, and then you have the same version of transactions where I say that I gave Stephanie 2 pieces of bread, and Stephanie says, well, no, actually you gave me 3 pieces of bread. And how do we reconcile, right? So which version of truth is the real version of truth? And this is the challenge, right? How do we reconcile? Which one? How do we decide which one is real? Well, there is the internet. We came to the internet, and that was the big game changer here. On the internet, everyone could publish their version of the truth. And of course, that was also the challenge, because now we were able to create this peer-to-peer network. So we all in this room could say, well, my version of the truth is real. And now, well, there's a question, right? Because I am standing here with the mic, and I can say, well, I have the mic, so my version of the truth is real because I'm superior to you all, because I'm thankfully unmuted now. But in a moment, Jörg will be unmuted, so he could say it's real. And then the lady there in the back of the room is very charming, so she could be the one who is saying that her version of the truth is the real one. And so we could start fighting. And fights are great, but that's not the real way to do it. So we started thinking about achieving consensus mechanisms. So how do we do it in a way that is mathematically proven and not really something that is about fighting with each other? And this is how we came to the blockchain technology that predates actually the Bitcoin, which is the cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is kind of the way that gave us incentives to implement all of that. But blockchain gave us the open source, network verified, beyond borders, right? So across all of the borders, and cryptographically secured, fast and decentralized way to reconcile and achieve a consensus mechanism where we can put the transactions and methods of reconcile information, or information of how do we move assets between each other. And these assets could be anything. It could be moving data, it could be moving horses or cars or whatever else between people. And the most important thing that you have to really know about blockchain is the fact that it achieves the trust and transparency. So because the way that it is put on it, and I have the clicker. Do you see the green spot? Okay, great. So the most important thing is that whatever we put in a block, right? So this is one block. This is equal to the page of a ledger that I was showing earlier. So the most important thing that you have to know about blockchain is that in one block, whatever you put here, and this is the one page of a block, it is hashed. So it is like a blend of whatever was what is here. There is a hash here. And this information here is linked to the previous block, right? So and what is important is that now if something, so I try to mess and say, well, I am changing this information here. So say I put information in the ledger, right? And I put the information that I moved my horses to Alice, and I paid 50,000 euro for a horse to Alice. And then in some future point in time, I decide to change that and do something different. And say I paid actually 25,000 euro for those horses. This actually, because of the cryptographic change there, because of the cryptography, what changes is it bleeds all the way to the front. So now everyone can see in the world that this has changed, and everyone is getting informed about that. So this is why it has such a strong security properties. Now, how does that impact future of knowledge, right? Why are we even talking about that? Well, because the less trust is required, the lower the maintenance cost. So we moved from the centralized systems to the decentralized ones, where we had major servers and they were connected to each other, to the distributed systems like the blockchain systems. And now we have all sort of applications of that. And these are the few ones that I'll just briefly mention. This is one that allows artists and musicians to claim the rights of musical rights. Where each artist can claim put the authorship or provenance of their musical records. And this is already in existence, right? This company exists. They built on top of Hyperledger Sawtooth, so one of the frameworks that we've developed. And artists can say, well, this is my track, and now anyone who uses it should pay me should pay me money. Another thing is putting certification and reputation, which is now universities can put certification on a blockchain, your university grade, and together with governments, together with students, bring that kind of reputation system to the blockchain that can be shared across borders and shared across ledgers. Another thing that can happen is reusability of research. This is a team that has built during a hackathon in Nashville during Distributed Health and proposed a solution where every major research study should be put on a blockchain so that the research teams should be held accountable for what research they are doing, and the studies should be then reusable, right? So the big problem of how to reuse the studies is now being solved. So there is a lot more, and I just hugely recommend everyone to get involved because blockchain offers a lot of possibilities and a lot of potential for knowledge to advance the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. Stephanie, Bloomsbury, your publishing house, is not only famous for Harry Potter, but it's also famous since you've always been at the forefront of technology. You've been starting the first ebook platform before Amazon started, yeah? And you had the Harry Potter platform. So maybe you could talk a little bit on how you reinvented your publishing house over the past 20 years, and also how do you see, what's your expectation now from things like blockchain technology? Will it change our business, your business?
Yeah, well, firstly, I would say that the Bloomsbury's approach anyway to digital has always been Bloomsbury's approach to everything, because we are just essentially a very entrepreneurial company, so we always had to, stay on the cutting edge of everything, and we could see that digital transformation was coming, therefore we tried to be ahead of that. I think what's really interesting in terms of the blockchain piece of it is this ability to share our content. Maybe we are producing content and then we're using what Marta has just explained to share that content, to make sure that the authors get paid for that content sharing, to make sure that we know it's the official book, not a copy book. All these sorts of things I think are going to be incredibly helpful in the sharing of content and ensuring people get paid for it along the way.
I think about new technologies, it's always very difficult to decide whether to use it, but it's also very difficult to implement it. How would you advise, Marta? What would you tell Bloomsbury how to go from here?
Well, I'm in no position to advise Bloomsbury. It's an amazing publishing house. I think that it's all about, as you said in your keynote, I think that's a phenomenal insight, that it's all about collaboration. And that's something that we often say, and I'm not the first one to say it, that there's only as much fun that you can have on a blockchain alone. It's a peer-to-peer network, so you need peers to collaborate. And so this is a big thing. Moving to the future of knowledge, we really need to collaborate and pull the resources together. There are phenomenal projects out there that aim to pull the resources and see how can we share the knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, that's one thing, actually collaboration, but actually it's also a financial investment. Can you talk a bit about numbers, or what do you have to do? Like, as a company like Bloomsbury, they have to have a digital director, but now they have to have a blockchain director as well.
Well, of course. I mean, there is an investment that has to happen in terms of investing in the technology upfront. But a lot of this technology is open source, so you can pull the code. It's not something that you have to pay for to integrate in, right? It's a technology, so yes, you have to have computer scientists on board, but it's an innovation, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there enough computer scientists out there? Are there enough people already trained? Do you know how to do it, or do we have to develop a new position? Actually, do we have to teach people before we roll it out?
I think that there is enough technologists out there in general. I'm not sure if there are enough technologists in the publishing area. I think that this is the new challenge, a task for everyone. Let's start pulling people into technology and publishing.
Yeah. I see a lot of advantages of blockchain technology in the field of rights transactions, if you think of intellectual property. Yeah, but could you also see a technology changing the way we do write books?
Well, personally, I don't think it's going to change the way we write books. I think an author has to have an idea and has to be able to write that or say it out loud, whether it's an oral story, however. I don't think, and I could be wrong, of course, but I don't think we're going to get to an age where computers necessarily make up the stories or that would make up really moving stories. I think you need a person who has emotion to convey that emotion. That said, I do think that the sharing, using this technology to share is absolutely going to happen, and I welcome that, actually.
I think that a huge potential in the digital world is something. It happened with a book, I forget the name of it, but there is this whole concept of a book being written by a collaboration of people. I think it's called something like 2027.
Yeah.
It was started in Moscow, I think, where various people wrote the same version or different versions of the same story. It's like a collaboration. You know that letter that you can write and every person writes a single line of the same story. So this is an interesting concept where people can start collaborating on the same book. I think that another huge potential with blockchain and this whole digital world is resharing the resources. So using blockchain and future of technology for building on top of each other, right? So putting books and putting knowledge just to make sure that we preserve what has been written already. So projects like Project Alexandria, where we preserve the current knowledge on the blockchain, making sure that nothing that has been already written gets lost.
Mm. Yeah. Stephanie, you mentioned open access, and we've been talking a lot about collaboration and sharing, but somebody has to pay for this, yeah?
Yeah, that's always our challenge, certainly in publishing, is where's the money coming from? And whilst we're all for everyone sharing information, we still believe that whoever has created the information in the first place, primarily the author and the publisher who helps bring the author's work to the world, needs to be paid for that. And that is the challenge, is finding the way that we can make information accessible to all as easily as possible, as painlessly as possible, and yet at the same time that payment is made for that. Because without payment, no one's going to be able to create content. And I think, that's an important concept that especially the new generation, the children today need to learn that it's not all free, because if it is all free, no one will be able to create the content that they watch, listen to, read, play, whether it's a game or a video or whatever. So it's an important concept.
I think it's a very good point that we are I think it's a huge potential as well that today the new generation has been brought up already with the internet. So they have a different attitude. I see that with kids at home where they don't have the attitude of, oh, I'll get it for free. They are actually willing to pay for the content because they understand that without paying for the content, there is no such thing as free lunch, right?
Yeah.
And this is a very important thing. And I think that, as I was telling you earlier during the break, there are already solutions for that where we are building solutions that are allowing us to preserve the digital content so that it cannot be copied with the use of new technologies.
Yeah, actually Linux, it's a good example because it's a shared software. Yeah, you can use it for free, and still people develop it without getting paid for it. Yeah?
Yes, because there are things on top of free software. It's free as in open, not free free as in no, you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah. Stephanie, where are you seeing our industry in 5 years, and where do you see it in 20 years?
Well, I see a really exciting future, actually, because I think that people always want to tell stories, and I think that technology is giving us better ways of telling stories, sharing them, and ultimately being paid for them so that we can keep writing stories or telling stories. So I think it's exciting.
Marta, what's your idea of the future?
I think it will be a very interesting world where we aim to collaborate, where we move to a very decentralized world where trust is a thing that we build together and share. So world where reputation is pulled from different resources, something that I touched upon, where it's no longer the case that we rely on third parties in terms of building certification processes, for instance, right? So when we talk about knowledge, where we talk about movies, cinemas, or whatever else, this is all built from what media is, or social media is giving us. That is something very interesting, and of course that.
And actually, I just want to add one other thing. I think one of the biggest challenges right now is technology has enabled so much to be out there. We're now faced with a proliferation of information, and the key thing is, how do you choose the right information? You know, curation is key, actually. When you're faced with an ocean of stuff, how do you pick the good stuff? And I think that's another interesting challenge, and hopefully one where the sort of technologies Marta's been talking about will help publishers ensure that the good stuff is what's found and bought and consumed.
Yeah, how to pick the good stuff, content-wise, but also how to pick the good technology. Yeah,
Absolutely,
decide when it's the
yeah.
right moment in time. When I started in publishing, we had the first Xerox machine, and we thought this is going to turn publishing around, and nobody's going to pay for publishing anymore.
Yeah.
This is only like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Already 30 years. We have 2 minutes left. Are there any questions in the audience to the publisher, to the technology company?
My question is for Dr. Piekarska. Can the blockchain make farmers access to the market directly, thus eliminating the stock exchange and the deep price fluctuations which comes with it? Shall I repeat my question?
Yes, could you?
Okay. Can the blockchain make farmers, the crop growers, a direct access to the market?
Yes, so that's a very interesting problem. It's
Thank you.
it can. It's a very typical use case, or there are quite a few aspects of it, and I'm very happy to elaborate on it. Just to keep it brief, a very typical use case that we talk about is using so-called smart contracts and for insurance industry, where we make sure that when a farmer goes to an insurance company, he makes a smart contract with an insurance company that in case for 100 days the crops are exposed to a temperature over 40 degrees Celsius, the insurance company pays to the farmer the insurance. Now, in today's world, the insurance company will try to dispute the temperature or the number of days or whatever else. With smart contracts and blockchain technology, what happens is that we put a very so-called smart meter on the farm, and on the 100th day of over 40 degrees, the smart meter just automatically executes the smart contract, and the money gets transferred to the farmer. So this is a very direct method and very fair method of executing, where the auditing and the middleman is completely eliminated. So this is a very easy method for people to get very fair deals.
Mm-hmm. But there has been another question over there as well.
Yeah.
Hello, it's also for Marta. So I come from a non-technical background in Literature Foundation. I didn't know much about blockchain, but of course all we here already have been hearing the word blockchain over and over again. So my question is, you invited everyone to get involved with blockchain, but how does someone who doesn't come from computer science background could educate themselves or get involved with this? How does blockchain relate to just ordinary people?
So we have launched in Linux Foundation something that is called Massive Online Open Source Course. Through the website, the www.hyperledger.org, you will find a link to it. It's an open source, free of charge. You know, anyone can go online and get access to it. You can just learn on your own about blockchain. We have working groups that are also accessible, and they are just for everyone to participate and focus on different areas. So there's a healthcare working group, there are some other working groups that focus on different areas. But basically the MOOC is your first entry level, and there's a very vibrant blog that we run. And also what is very interesting is we run meetups, and there is a meetup in Dubai as well. So you can go and talk about blockchain, and this is your opportunity to talk about everything that is connected to blockchain and Hyperledger without a network as well.
Yeah, and you could also buy books on blockchain technology.
Of course, and
there are quite a few publishers out there.
Yes, you could do that as well. We do publish. There are people publishing on blockchain in old style.
Yeah. So thank you very much. There's one last question, please.
Hi, I'm Wafa Mustafa. I'm author for 18 books in the market. And for human resources development and knowledge economy. I find it's very difficult to get rid of the book, how to read the book and make research in the book itself, not for online book. So how it will be in the future, how for researchers to find only their needs in the technology online, and not to read the book itself and feel the words, and to hold the book, to keep it for a position for property, as used as we like the books in our bookshelf, and to have the position of the book itself. So how will you find in future, and to also to get use of that, and without feelings to hold the books and get the relation, emotional relation between the self and the book itself. Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure if I completely understood your question, but if I can just draw to your last point, how you can, the connection between yourself and the book, I would hope that will always be the case, because whenever you read a book, however you read it, if you read it in print, if you read it on your phone, if you read it, on a tablet, the connection is between you and the words and the story that's being told. So I think the connection should hopefully always be there if you're enjoying what you're reading. In terms of how books will be read and accessed in the future, absolutely, that is changing all the time. And I think it's a really valid point. How is the way you're reading now, will it still be accessible in 20 years? I think that was what you were asking. But yes, we always have to change the technologies, and we always have to make sure that if someone bought a book today, they will still be able to read it in 20 years' time. That is something that we're working on all the time to make sure that the book lasts in whatever format it's being distributed.
Yeah, the book is actually the story we are telling. It doesn't matter which media we use, whether it's print, whether it's online, whether it's an audio book. A film is telling a story. Right now we have Netflix, we have series on television which are telling a lot of stories. So, and this is not going to go away. So technology is only there to support us, really.
Although I must say that being at Frankfurt Buchmesse, looking at how different publishers approach publishing and how the print is done differently, this is definitely something that publishers are looking into, how to make that connection with books. It is a problem, how to sell books.
No, it's not a problem, actually. It's, everything exists at the same time. We have these wonderful books, we have the haptic, we can touch our books, but on the other hand, we can distribute information digitally. So it's not, there's not a competition between the media. They are supporting each other. That's my idea. And actually, thank you so much for mentioning the book fair again.
Well, I loved it. Thank you so much
for listening to us. Oh, there are more questions.
Well, I think that, do we have time for more questions?
Yeah.
Okay, 2 more questions.
2 more questions, please.
Yes. My question is related with Bitcoin. Since it is correlated with blockchain, Bitcoin was costing $1 in 2015. Now it is 7,000, 8,000. It is a cryptocurrency. So I'm thinking that where it is being used, so that its cost is being increased. So can you say something about that?
Where is it being used? In general, I stay away from Bitcoin. We work with blockchain, the underlying technology, and Hyperledger was founded, as I was saying, because we strongly believe that the blockchain technology poses a much more, it gives much bigger opportunities applied to healthcare. Today I was talking about knowledge, but we do, most of our projects are in healthcare and insurance and financial industry, so reconciliation of banks and all sort of other exciting stuff. Bitcoin is mostly used as an, not as a fiat, but as an investment mechanism. So people use it like gold, so buy and keep, and that's how it's being used.
There's another question in the first row, another 2 questions in the first row.
The continuously argument between the self-publishing and let's say the copyright and the good content. There is a hope? That means if I could publish anything, I could just grab a page from here and just publish it. So how would the blockchain could ensure the good content, also give me the easy access for self-publishing and the copyright, to reserve that copyright. So there is a continuous argument. Thank you.
So I'm so glad you touched upon that, because this is something that comes up very often in many cases. The fact that you put something on a blockchain does not make it true. And there will still be need for entities like publishers, like writers. Actually, we need writers in the future to write. And the fact that I will claim that I painted Mona Lisa does not make me an author of Mona Lisa. I wish I was, but I'm not. I'm good at other things, but not in painting. So we need auditors. We need publishers in the future. Blockchain is immutable, and so we need to make sure that what we put on a blockchain is true, is good, and it's valuable. It will help preserve this information. So in the future, we will be able to make sure that pieces of Homer's poetry will stay forever, and our grandchildren will know Homer and Horatio, which is wonderful, because right now we are on the verge of losing this in the digital world, and there will be many translations of it, and we will know that there are many translations. But we need to verify that these are the right translations of it.
Yeah, I love you, Marta. It's so good that you stressed the role of the author. Thank you so much. But we had one last question down there.
Sorry, I think we're out of it. So during lunch, maybe?
Yeah, we'll be around. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you.